I'm so excited to, learn more, to learn some brain training techniques about overcoming procrastinations. But before we begin, maybe you can talk about what you do at Evolve Brain Training and what are the types of issues that you help people deal with.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me on here. I'm really excited to talk about procrastination as someone who used to be a master procrastinator. So I do have some tips for that. At my center, we do brain training. We help people with lots of different issues like improving their memory, their focus, but also things like stress and anxiety management, anger management, depression, sleep disorders, confidence, lack of motivation, procrastination, anything holding them back from achieving peak performance. And the way we do that is using a really cool technology that was invented by NASA. It's called neurofeedback therapy, which is completely non-invasive and quite futuristic. So we use these EEG sensors that we attach to your head, and these sensors can actually look inside your brain and measure your brain activity. And then based on that,
Okay,
we
that's
give a
so
feedback
interesting.
to your brain. Yeah. So if you so say for example you want to improve your focus, you would be sitting in a chair, you would be watching something on the screen while we have sensors hooked up to you. And every time you are focused, the sensors will sense that and the screen you're watching will go full screen and the sound will be clear. But if you get distracted or bored or think other thoughts, then the screen will shrink and sound will get muffled. Now, the big
Okay.
screen and good sound, they are a positive reward for your brain. Brain likes it. So your brain will automatically try to do more and more of the activity that gives it that reward. So over time, then this new way of being more focused or being more calm becomes your brain's natural new habit. So that even if you stop coming to me and you're living your life, you're at school, at work, at home, your brain will now remember this new technique of how to be calm or how to stay focused.
That's so cool. So would you say that this would replace the need to take any medication? So suppose you're ADHD and you don't want to take medication, or if you're depressed and you don't want to do the medication route, this is like the slow and steady route to get better. Would you say that? Or
Yes,
would you
that's
also suggest medication?
absolutely. No, actually, we are completely medication free. And we used to have, I mean, we still have clients that used to take medications before they came to me for everything, for anti-anxiety medications, antidepressants, and also ADHD medication. And by the time they were done with me, most of them were able to completely get off medications, and some of them were on a highly reduced dosage. So my aim is to always make your brain regulate itself enough that you don't need the support of any other medications for the rest of your life.
Okay, that's cool. If you guys want to read more about the services and the sessions that Upasana provides, then you can make sure that you head on over to the website, which is evolvebraintraining.com. So without further ado, I guess we could start off with
Yeah.
the topic at hand, which is procrastination. So first, I guess let's go ahead and define the term. What is procrastination, really?
So I'm sure each and every one of us, everyone who's watching, and everyone you know, and you and I have all at some times procrastinated. So procrastination is putting off something or ignoring something that you know is important, but it's a bit hard, in favor of doing something that's much more enjoyable or easier. So that in simple terms is what procrastination is. And what happens is, see, in all of our brains, there is this rational driver. Okay, this driver wants to make sure that we stay on track, we do our tasks, we have our long-term goal in mind, and we work towards it. Yeah, even if it involves doing tasks that you find unpleasant or boring or difficult. Now, at the same time, there is also this other instant gratification monkey that lives in our head. This monkey keeps distracting the rational driver. This monkey, all it cares about is the present and what's fun right now, what rewards it can get right now, and it has no concept of the past. So it doesn't learn from the mistakes when you procrastinated in the past and you got in trouble. It has no concept of the future. It doesn't understand the consequences of not doing the thing that you're supposed to do. All it cares about is the present and the now. And this instant gratification monkey is what makes you go down a YouTube hole when you have a term paper due the next day. So, you want to know how black holes are created or how deep the Mariana Trench is when you should be really working on your paper in economics. So this procrastination is basically a fight between the instant gratification monkey and our rational driver, where the instant gratification monkey wins. Now, when a deadline is really looming near, that's when the panic monster comes in. And the instant gratification monkey is really scared of the panic monster. So only when the panic monster enters the picture is when the monkey goes away, and then the rational driver is allowed to help us focus and finish the task. Um, and this
Yeah, I
works.
feel like I'm either monkey or monster. I feel like it's always like that fine line of like trying to put it off until like it's like the very last minute, and then like it's full stress to do something or like to do it in a timely or like to even do it efficiently, I feel. So yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for
Correct.
explaining it that way. So relatable.
But and it's also important to remember because when the panic monster sets in, you're not really, even though the rational driver is there, you're not really thinking that rationally because it's the panic monster, right? So you're not going to do your best
Hmm.
work. It's not going to be calm and efficient and planned. It's just going to be something that you know you have to finish because you messed around for so long and now you're in this panic state. So it's important to remember that although you may be able to finish things by the deadline with the help of the panic monster, it's not going to be your best work.
Okay, so it's better to do things ahead of time and to plan them. Definitely. And then that's what we're going to sort of cover. So, how do we go about recognizing that we're procrastinating? Like, how do we know that? I'm sure there are many things, but like it just might not click with us.
Right. So some of the times it's easy to recognize that you're procrastinating. For example, when I decided to clean out my wardrobe instead of prepare for this procrastination talk, obviously I knew that that was procrastinating. But sometimes you could be doing things that not even realize that we're actually doing is procrastinating. For example, you could be filling up your day with super low priority tasks just so that you feel that you're doing something, but you're just taking things off a box. But these are not things that really matter. They're not important. They're not urgent. You're just doing them because you want to feel productive. So that's a form of procrastination that often goes unnoticed. Sometimes you can sit to do a really important task that you know is going to be difficult and you're fully excited for it and you start it and then within 10 minutes you go to take a coffee break. Okay, that's another form of procrastination that you may not realize. So it's or things like you're reading an email and you read it over and over again without actually making a decision to do anything about it. So you feel like you're doing something because you're reading the email and you're doing whatever, but you're not actually doing the task. You're just finding other ways to procrastinate. So it's important to recognize that it may not always be easy to know that you're procrastinating, but keep an eye out for these mini procrastination ways so that you can
Yeah.
avoid them.
Yeah, for me personally, I always feel like, oh, I need to be in the right mood to do something, or like, yeah, I need to like, this is not the time to do this. And that always like pushes me way back, and like I feel like I don't. I feel like I prioritize more on low priority tasks, like
Yeah,
housework, for example,
yeah.
because we're in a situation where we don't have maids right now. So I feel like housework is a low priority task that I pretty much try to tackle the first thing in the morning, which I probably shouldn't be doing. So where would you say that household chores fall in
So
on the
I'll talk
priority
a little
list?
bit about prioritizing tasks when we come to the strategies, and we'll go a little bit more into detail because I do want to talk about that. But another thing that you mentioned is also quite right. The right time to do it or the right mood to do it. All of us feel this at some point, or I'm going to start at the beginning of the week. No, there's no time like now. Don't wait for a particular time. So that can be another way that you don't realize you're procrastinating by waiting for a right time. The right time is now. It's always now.
Got it. That's so true. I always have a tendency to put things away for like, oh, okay, maybe I'll do this for tomorrow. So try to basically tackle all the tasks as they come to you,
And they
correct?
come.
All right. And so why we basically have it like why do we have this tendency to procrastinate? Is it mainly because the task is unpleasant and we like don't want to get into it?
Okay, yeah, there are many reasons. One of them definitely can be that a task is unpleasant, boring, not your style, not of your interest, or it doesn't really align with your goals. But there can be lots of other reasons, and it's actually really important to understand why you are procrastinating so you can formulate a strategy to overcome it. Because there might be different reasons, and not only different reasons for different people, but different reasons for the same person for different tasks. So you might procrastinate on one task for one reason, but on another task for another reason. So some of the reasons could be, for example, that you are just really disorganized. So if you cannot put your task down, you might forget some tasks, you might forget something that's important, or your tasks are all strewn around, they're not put properly in a place, you don't think about your day in advance, you don't plan things, and that can obviously lead to procrastination because how are you going to do something if you don't even remember it or didn't even put it down? Yeah.
That's right.
Another reason can be you could be really organized and have all your lists and everything in place, but it could just be really overwhelming. So that can overwhelm, can cause paralysis, and then you feel like there's too much. So why should I even start? Because I'm not going to finish it. Sometimes it can be because you have self-doubt or you are worried about failure. Oftentimes, in these cases, people end up doing tasks that they know that they're good at, even if they're not that important, and just forget about tasks that they may feel that they may not be good at or that they are not skilled enough to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
um,
guilty.
that can exactly because that can make you feel that you're doing something productive because you're doing some task, but you know that that's not what you should be spending your time on. On the other
Okay.
hand, some people are afraid of success. They think that if they do a task really well, that's difficult, they're going to get more tasks like that and be swamped, and people are going to request them to do more stuff like that. So that's another reason they may avoid those kind of tasks. And finally, we have the perfectionists, right? Perfectionists are often procrastinators. They think that you'd rather not do something at all if you're not going to be do it absolutely perfectly. And this is really not the right way to think about things. And I used to be exactly one of these kind of people, and it was very hard for me to overcome that. But honestly, sometimes when you're in that state of mind, you should think about how perfect does that task really have to be? You know, would you rather really not do it at all and then have it cause more anxiety and stress, or you try to do it the best that you can, and then over time you
Gets
modify it
better.
and edit exactly. So it's really important to figure out why you're procrastinating on a certain task. Go through these list of um, possible ideas so that you can think about how you will overcome your personal reason for procrastination. What kind of procrastinator are you, Rima?
Hi, sorry, wait, there's a slight lag, so I'm just waiting for you. Okay, I got it. I heard you. All right. So also, I'm sorry, it just keeps cutting in and out for me. So sometimes your screen is still loading. Okay, yeah, sorry, let's continue. So you do have some, some tips of how you can overcome this. So do you want to maybe talk about some of your procrastination strategies that, we can probably start with to
Yeah,
like try to overcome
so
this?
absolutely. So if you are the disorganized type of procrastinator, there's lots of organization strategies that you can use. Number one, and this one I really, really swear by, is the making the to-do list. Oftentimes people think
Yeah,
that,
I've
oh
started
no, their
doing that
memory
of
is
late and it's
good.
really helped me. Like I have like different lists for different things.
Sorry, your
And
sentence didn't finish.
yeah, sorry, I said that I have started doing keeping to-do lists and I feel like it has helped me a lot. But I feel like it's still not like I don't really complete everything that I have to and it always
Mm.
goes to the next day and the next day. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a
So yeah, it's
ever
important to not only have a to-do list, but it's really important to prioritize your to-do list. And that's what writing things down helps with. Because in your head, you can have, even if your memory is great, even if you're not going to forget any of the tasks, it's still a jumble in your head, right? You don't exactly, when you put it down in writing, you can see what to prioritize, you can see what is more important. And this is where I want to talk about the Eisenhower Matrix. So, step one is to make a to-do list. Step two is to prioritize your list by using the Eisenhower matrix. This is the urgent important matrix. So you basically make a 4-quadrant matrix. You can just make it yourself on a piece of paper. Yeah. And the way that the tasks are divided, in Q1, you have your urgent and important tasks. So these will be things with looming deadlines or term papers that are due, or an email that needs to be responded to right away, or tax deadlines, or any really, if you're really sick, you need to go to the doctor. All of these kind of things that could be really important
So
and really
anything, so anything that requires immediate action, right? That's the first most important. That's under urgent and important, technically.
right. But don't confuse it with most important. Just because it's super urgent and important doesn't mean that those are the tasks you should be spending all your time on, because this is a trap a lot of people get in. But I'll
Okay.
talk about that a little bit. So in Q1, you have your urgent important tasks, because these urgent important tasks, they put us in a state, right? When something is urgent, you just need to react quickly and you need to do it. Now, Q2, this is where this is the quadrant where you should be spending most of your time. So Q2 are not urgent, but important tasks. So these will be your long-term goals, your missions, your values, and things that are going to help you achieve whatever you want to achieve. There may not be any looming deadlines to this quadrant, but this is the most important quadrant, because this is what's going to reach you to where you want to be. And the things that would be on this in this quadrant are your long-term goals, or your future business goals, your career goals, your relationship goals, your fitness goals. There's no panic monster for these things. And so you end up not really doing them and putting them off forever and ever, even though these are the most important things, right? You end up spending
That
all
makes
of
so
your
much
time
sense.
doing things. You spend all of your time doing these urgent tasks, and you think that, oh, you're doing so great because you're doing so many tasks and you're checking so many things on your list, but you're putting off the things that are most important. So remember, you should be spending most of your time on the Q2 tasks. And in fact, if you actually plan well, you can put many of your Q1 tasks on Q2 so they never make it to the urgent list. So if you plan for a term paper or you plan for a deadline, you should have already scheduled time for it using the Q2 quadrant. And it wouldn't be up here in your Q1 urgent and important list, because you would have finished it well before time. Yeah. Then we have the
Right. So if you
Q3.
can help it, sorry, I was saying if you can help it, try to do everything beforehand. So you just leave like the last minute urgent stuff that comes right at you to tackle in your first quadrant, which is urgent and important, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the
I think I
Q2,
got that.
so as I mentioned, the Q1, urgent, important, they put you in a reactive state. The Q2, you are in a responsive state. You're more calm, you will plan more efficiently, and the best work will come out of those things. Then you have the
Okay.
Q3 quadrant, which are urgent tasks, but not really that important. So these are often some, they don't really help you achieve your goal, but they could be important for other people, like tasks that other people ask you to do, or interruptions from coworkers or from friends or family, your mother dropping in, asking for something, an old employee asking for a recommendation letter, these kind of things. These could be important to that person, but not really that important to you. So even though these tasks are urgent, people often get into the trap of doing these urgent tasks because it makes them feel important, because you're helping someone else, so it's important, but it's not really helping you achieve your goal. So you shouldn't be spending too much time doing these urgent tasks. If possible, try to delegate things in this quadrant. So somebody who can do that task better than you, or if it's, not, if it's not that important, you personally don't have to do that task. You can give it to somebody else, or you can find a way to do it at a time that doesn't take away time from your personal goals. And then
Right.
the Q4, yeah, go ahead.
What I'm assuming is like maybe a phone call and a catch-up session with a friend that I haven't spoken to for a long time that can like lead to hours and hours of conversation. That's pretty much better left off if you schedule that for the end of your day, like once you've done all your activities
Yeah,
and
so
tasks for
that
the
would
day.
be an example of a Q4 task. So Q4 are all the things that are fun, enjoyable, playing video games, talking to your friends, scrolling through Instagram, watching Netflix. And of course, you don't have to eliminate these tasks because we're all human beings. We deserve to reward ourselves when we're doing things. But these tasks should be, yes, when you have leftover time. And if you plan your time well, you will have leftover time to do these Q4 activities and enjoy your life also, right? But a lot of us fall into the trap of doing a Netflix binge, and then this ends up making you feel guilty, and then you get depressed, and then you get stressed, and then you're less likely to do the task that actually you need to be doing. So if you have this matrix in front of you, you can split your tasks into these different quadrants. You can actually even understand what is important, because I think people often forget the Q2 tasks just because they're not urgent, even though they're the most important, and then
Yeah.
they end up going in the Q4 quadrant, which is not where they belong because they are really important. So having a big picture and your big goal in mind is really important for you to be able to get there. So this kind of matrix really helps you put things in perspective, and it also helps you realize, because if you don't know what you want, the Q2 might look pretty empty. So that actually makes
Yeah.
you think
Yeah.
and see what it is that you want to put in this quadrant that is most important to you and that aligns with your values.
Okay, that's cool. That makes so much sense now. I feel like my to-do list will be much better after implementing this exercise. Okay, so we've just spoken about like keeping a to-do list and to sort of prioritize it according to your urgent and important example that you just gave.
Yeah.
What next? What else do you
So
suggest?
the other thing is, we all have different times when we are the most productive. So figure out what your peak working time is and then do the hardest tasks at those times. So there are lark brains. These are like the morning people. They love getting up in the morning. They do their best work before noon. And then there are the night owls who do their best work after 6 p.m. They stay late in the morning. Their work is really not, that's not their best time to work. So you got to figure out your own cycle, figure out when you actually do your best work. If you are a night owl and you know you do your best work, don't spend that night time watching TV. Right? If you know that that is your time when you're most productive, then do your hardest jobs at that time. So you don't necessarily have to tackle the hardest task on your list the first thing in the morning if that's not when you are your most happy and most productive. So figure out your own cycle and then plan for the hardest task at your personal peak times so you can do the best
Understood.
job of it.
Okay, nice. Okay. And other than this, like, do you think what can help with time management, for example? Is there anything that you would suggest?
Yeah, I mean, so also minimizing distractions, which could be, minimizing all kinds of distractions. So turning off notifications. When it's your time to work, you work. So I use this Pomodoro technique where you divide time into chunks. So you use a timer, and it's set in 25 and 5 minute chunks. So for 25 minutes, you work really hard, no distractions, nothing going on. And then when the timer rings, you get a 5 minute break. And then you do whatever you want. And then the timer rings again, and then you come back to what you were doing. So you do this 25, 5, 25, 5, 4 times. So that will be 2 hours. And then after every 2 hours, you can take a longer 20-minute break. Yeah, so you have
That's
this
nice.
timer that does the ding and that sound, and then it like makes a connection in your brain. So if you use this technique a lot, you will start getting better at it, and your brain will be trained that whenever you hear the ding, you got to go back to work, or whenever you hear the ding, you go to take your break. So it really helps you stay on task, and it doesn't make it too tedious because not everybody is great at putting in 4 hours of work without getting, most of us can't do that. So having this kind of technique, and if you just have it randomly where you work for a little bit, take a break, but there's no structure to it, you can end up having a really long break, or you work too hard and then you get too tired to continue working. So using this Pomodoro technique can
Mm,
keep you on track in good chunks of time.
right. And you can set your own time. You're saying, like, suppose if I feel like I can work efficiently for 30 minutes and then take a 10-minute break, I can like sort of set
Absolutely.
that. It doesn't have to be like a 15-minute and 10-minute thing.
No.
Okay.
No, of course not. Whatever works for you, but just be
Okay, nice.
consistent because your
Uh,
brain wants to be in a, brain likes having schedules or likes having stability and consistency. So if you can keep whatever your personal time chunks are, just keep them consistent and you should be able to get the most out of it.
cool. And would you recommend any sort of like time management apps? Do you have any that you use, or like scheduling apps? Do you have any recommendations, or do you just prefer writing it down, like, having it in front
I
of you on a
personally
notepad?
Yeah, I personally prefer writing it down, and I use this planner time box. I think it's really cool, and it also has the Eisenhower Matrix in it, and it has weekly planner, and it has monthly spread, and it has all these trackers to track new habits and stuff like that. But for me personally, writing things down, it makes an extra connection in my brain because you are writing it, then you're reading it, and you're thinking about it. So you're doing it three times, and it's giving three signals to your brain to go do that task. But it doesn't have to be like that. If you prefer an app, you can do that too. But then just remember, an app is on the phone, and there are lots of distractions on the phone. So if you're good
Yeah.
about it, and you can, put your phone in focus mode and just use that app or something like that, then that's great. But if you don't get distracted by other distractions on your phone, you're able to stay on track. Yes, some apps are great. Monday.com is great. Trello is great. There's also focus timers. So if you don't want to get the actual timer, you can use focus timer apps. But I really prefer the actual timer because it really gives that ding and it's analog, so it prevents other kinds of distractions.
Ah, I see. Okay. All right. So to summarize, basically what you've been saying is the best way to overcome procrastination is to keep to-do lists, prioritize your to-do lists, right? To maybe split up bigger tasks into smaller tasks so you
Yeah.
can work out them more effectively, to sort of become better at scheduling and managing your time by
Mhm.
either using
And
apps or writing it
using
down and
time
setting
chunks.
sort of time-bound
Yeah.
goals for yourself.
So yeah, so these
And
are really
and your
help.
Pomodoro technique.
Yes. So these things really help, a disorganized procrastinator. If you are an overwhelmed procrastinator or somebody who gets really stressed or anxious, there are some other techniques that will work for you. So one of them you just mentioned, which is, breaking tasks into smaller chunks. So if a task seems too overwhelming and you are prone to anxiety or stress looking at something big and scary, try to break it down into its smallest pieces and then use the Pomodoro technique for that. So for this part one, I'm going to use this 20-minute chunk. For this part two, I'm going to use this 20 minutes. So you can combine these two techniques to get the best out of it. Also, most importantly, forgive yourself for past procrastinations. So studies have shown that people that forgive themselves for all the times that they procrastinated in the past are much more likely to not procrastinate in the future. But if you wallow in that self-pity and misery that, oh, I didn't do it, what's the point of doing it now, I haven't done it for 2 years, doesn't matter how long you didn't do it for. You've decided to do it now, so be proud of that decision, forgive yourself, be kind yourself, and go forward in a positive manner.
Yeah, so forgive yourself, like acceptance and then forgiving yourself and then trying to make a change would be like, the first few steps that you would sort of get to. Okay, all right. I
It
had a
also helps to
question.
have, yeah, I was
Sorry,
just going to say,
continue.
it also
I'll,
helps to have, you can reward yourself every time you complete a section. Um, reward yourself with a coffee or reward yourself with 10 minutes of Instagram scrolling or whatever it is that makes you happy. Because that will again set another, a dopamine hit in
Mhm.
your brain that, oh, if I complete a task, I'm getting a reward, and then you'll be more likely to complete the next part of the task. It also helps to have someone check up on you. So have an accountability partner or, a mentor or a somebody you're in a relationship with or a parent or a friend or a colleague, someone who can help you stay on track, who can follow up with you, and you tell them your deadlines. You tell them, I'm going to do this by this time. Please check up on me if I've done it or not. And peer pressure really works. When you feel that you're going to disappoint other people and not just yourself, if you don't stick to your technique, you're more likely to do it. So
Got it.
have your,
That's like the That's like the good old mom technique, right? That's what our mothers used to do while we used to study in school. Just like constantly check up if you've done your homework, have you done this? At least mine was like that. I don't know. But yeah, that's what I can relate to.
Yeah. So yeah, these are some of the things that you do. So if you don't trust yourself that much, have somebody who can.
So, what about like, can you talk a little bit about what active procrastination is? Because I've come across this term and like, people believe sometimes that, their procrastination helps them, get through a task more efficiently. But is active procrastination just like a short-term thing, or can it be effective in the long run too? Like, does it
So
work?
it works for some people. So there are some people who really thrive under pressure, and so there's a bell curve, right? There's these people who do everything beforehand. There's actually a study that showed that people that do things way in advance, their quality of work is actually not the best. And the people who leave things everything for the absolute last minute, their quality of work is also not good. But there's a really sweet spot right in the middle, and these are the original thinkers. These are people that start a task, okay, but they don't just finish it right away. They start a task and then they wait on it for sometimes weeks or months, depending on the deadline, and then they come back to it, and then they might do a little bit more. And these people were shown to have the best quality, most creative work and most original work. Now, the reason why that is because once you start working on a task, it's there in your head, okay? It's there in your brain. Your brain is going to keep working on it in the background, even if you're doing other things. So the quality of stuff that you put out will be much more creative because your brain has had all this time to think about it, to think of different combinations, different novel ideas, not even without your conscious knowledge. A lot of the times, all these things are happening in the background. And then when you come back to the task, whoa, you'll have like an amazing, cool idea and that you might not have had if you had just done it when you first started it. So there is a sweet spot of like
I
using
got
active
it.
procrastination to your advantage, but it doesn't work if you're going to leave it till the absolute last minute because that's not, because if you don't start it until the end, it hasn't had the time to percolate in your brain. So it's important to start a
So it's
task and
more
then
like So it's more like 60-40%. Do the 60% before, like set up like a frame or an outline, and then like try to figure the end part by sprucing it up or like, getting some perspective and like creatively approaching it. Hmm.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right. So then I also have one last question for you before we can open to question and answers. If
Mhm.
anyone does have any questions for Pasna, please go ahead and mention it in the comments so then we can start reading them out. My first question is procrastination the same as being lazy?
So often people do think that, oh, people that procrastinate are just lazy, but laziness is apathy. It's an unwillingness to do something, it's lack of motivation, it's inactivity. Procrastination is active choosing. You choose to do something else. You choose to spend your time on low priority tasks, or you choose to do something a task that's easier or more fun. So it's different from laziness. It's not that you just don't want to do anything. You are putting it off in favor of something else. So it's more of an active choice, and it is a choice. You choose to do something, whereas laziness, it's just you're not doing anything. So it's more passive.
Gotcha. All right. So I'm going to read the comments now. So Zeneb is saying, please save this live. Yes, this live will be saved so everyone can access it. Does anyone have any questions? I'm just going to go through this. See. Okay. Or does anyone have any suggestions of what you'd like us
Yeah,
to
what
talk
do you guys
about in our
do?
future sessions? Yeah, so if there's any issue that you are tackling, like, if it's anxiety or stress. Okay, we have a
Yes.
question. How long does it take you to form a new habit?
So
Like the
that's
list
another
thing.
thing. Yeah. So the remember, procrastination is also a habit, and master procrastinators are really good at procrastinating because they have been doing it for so long. And just like you can make a habit, you can also break a habit by practicing avoiding doing that task. And the latest research on it is 66 days. So if for 66 days you continuously do something, whether it's picking up a new hobby or a new habit, or avoid doing something that you were doing before, like smoking or procrastinating, if you can do it consistently for 66 days, the chances are very good that you're going to be able to do it for the rest of your life, or until you plan to do it.
Nice. So get through the 66 days basically to inculcate and like this new good habit
But
basically.
that's the
Okay.
66 days is for it to become a long-term habit. But if you just do it for 3 weeks, it becomes much easier to continue doing it. So if you can get through the 3 week mark also, it's really good, because then it's going to be easier for you to make it to 66 days.
Got it, got it. So like work on shorter term goals. So first try to achieve the 3 week benchmark and then work towards the 60 days benchmark. All right.
Yeah.
So let's take another question. How do we differentiate between ADD and procrastination? Are the treatments the
So
same?
yeah, so very interesting, whoever brought up this question, because, sometimes people think that, oh, procrastination just comes because, you don't want to do something or you're overwhelmed, but there could actually be, underlying health issues causing you to procrastinate, like ADHD, attention deficit disorder. People with ADHD, they just have this inability to control their impulses, which basically means they cannot control their instant gratification monkey, which is why they are really good at procrastinating, because it's so hard for them to control that monkey. So you could be, showing lots of signs of procrastination because of ADHD. And even if you try all these techniques, you might not be able to get where you want to be because the underlying root cause has not been treated. It could also be because of OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. This comes to the perfectionists. They want everything to be exactly right, and then if they can't, they're paralyzed by the fear of doing something not right. It can also be because of stress or anxiety. The really anxious people are often procrastinators because they find it very hard to make a decision on anything. So they'll just not do it because they can't decide what to do or how to do it or what step to do first. So it's really important to figure out the root cause of it. And the treatments, there are many different treatments for ADHD and procrastination. But in my center, we use neurofeedback therapy for both of these issues. But we just tackle different parts of the brain depending on what the issue is. So we help people with anxiety, depression,
Okay.
ADHD, OCD, but we train different sides of their brain to help with their specific issue.
All right. So taking us to our next question from the story strip, she's asking, can someone procrastinate without being depressed? Or does it mean a person is depressed if he or she procrastinates?
So no, it's not so easy to answer that. So that's why when I talked about understand the why you are procrastinating comes into the picture. You really want to know why you're procrastinating. Are you procrastinating because if you're depressed, it would be more of, right, that I mentioned about the laziness, the apathy. You don't really want to do anything. Whereas if you are overwhelmed, you might be doing some easier tasks rather than working on the task you need to do. So it really depends on what symptoms you're exhibiting for me to be able to say. But yes, it is possible. Depression can be an underlying cause for some people's procrastination, but not everybody's.
Okay, understood. Okay, so how do you start recognizing these signs for the various types of attention disorders or issues, I guess? How does
Yeah,
it
so if you
start?
find
What is like,
someone who, yeah, if you find someone who is, constantly late or constantly forgetting things, leaving their key at home or forgetting their credit card, or you find them often to the point of it hurting their careers or their relationships, where they end up spending time doing things that they shouldn't be doing rather than working on the thing they should be doing, where it actually becomes debilitating and it's hurting their life in other ways, then yes, there might be a serious case of ADD over there. or zoning out, or acting out, sometimes being too emotionally reactive, or being emotionally unstable can also be an ADHD symptom, because you are unable to control those impulses and you just react a lot. So emotional dysregulation is another sign of ADD. But you need to meet a
Mm-hmm.
professional. We also do an ADHD test. So if you can talk to a doctor or a mental health counselor, you can do a checklist, you can do a brain scan, and you can figure out if it's really ADD or if it's something else or a combination.
Right. So if you're ADD, you can tend to procrastinate. If you procrastinate, it might lead to depression, but it might not. It just depends on what type of person you are, correct? If I'm understanding this
Yeah,
correctly. Um,
right.
okay, cool. So I think we also have another question by Yurika Sway. She said, are there any symptoms that can help us recognize procrastination in others? So I feel like whatever you just said also sort of relates
Right.
to this question, and
Yeah.
we answered it. Yurika, let me know if you're happy with what you heard or if you want to change your question up a little bit. Let's see. Does procrastination vary from person to person basis the physicality of their brain?
Yeah,
Ooh, we got
absolutely.
some
And
like
not just, sorry? Yeah, it does. And it's not
I
just
was saying,
person to person. Even on the same person, it could vary in different times of their lives. Their procrastination might look different. As I mentioned in the, recognize why you procrastinate, depending on the kind of person you are. If you're a perfectionist, your kind of procrastination would look different. If you are a disorganized person, your procrastination might look different. If you are an anxious person, your procrastination might look different. And like I said, for different tasks, you could have different reasons for not doing that task.
got it. So it's all about sort of internalizing and understanding everything
Yeah.
about you and like how
And
you work and function.
yeah, and it also helps to change your own internal dialogue. So, instead of saying things like, oh, I have to do this or I ought to do this, you can change that dialogue in your brain. You can be like, I want to do this, I choose to do this. Because when you say things like have to, should, ought to, must, it kind of makes you feel powerless, that you are not in control of the task and you're not in control of your life timeline, where you want to go, your goals, and all of this stuff. But when you replace I have to with I choose to, or I need to with I want to, it gives that control and power to yourself. And then you become the driver of where you want your life to go, where you want this task to go, where you want your future goals to go.
Understood. Okay. Okay, we have another question. If I'm procrastinating because of lack of energy, am I just fatigued or lazy?
So, yeah, you need to look at things. Are you doing other things that require energy? Are you going out with your friends? Are you doing other things that require input that seem easier or are fun? If you're not able to do any of the Q4 quadrant things, which are the fun, enjoyable things, if you're unable to do even those, then it could be a fatigue problem. But if you're perfectly fine doing low priority things or enjoyable fun things, and you only find yourself going through procrastination with difficult tasks and not having energy for difficult tasks, then there could be a different reason.
Got it. Got it. Shimona, I hope that answered your question. Okay, do we have any more? Let me just look through it. Okay, that's cool, guys. I think these are all the questions we had. Thank you for joining us. Do let us know if you want us to talk about any other topic, and then we will definitely try to schedule that in and do something for you guys. Thanks a lot, Upasna. Thank you for this. I feel like this has really helped me for sure. Big hearts if you feel like this has helped you guys. Big hearts for Upasna. Thanks so much. It really